We're back for season 2 with Hemel Hempstead remarkably preparing for the National League. It's a big transfer special, it's been a busy summer. But are we ready to avoid relegation? Let's go and find out. Yes, hello and welcome back to part 10 of the Tudor Times from Hemel Hempstead Town with me, Daniel. It's a one-club story where we try to take Hemel Hempstead from the lowest playable league to the top of English and European football. So far, things have started pretty well, despite a shaky few first episodes, despite the fact that we started last season awfully. We managed to win promotion towards the end of the year and remarkably made it a double in the FA Trophy final. And today, we are back to prepare for life in the National League. We've reached the first game of the season. We've got transfers to get through. Have we been able to stick to our summer plans that we prepared on Saturday? Or have we been tempted to do more? If you're looking forward to finding out, as well as how we get on in what is a pretty friendly first game of the season, we're playing at home to the side who got promoted in the playoffs from our league. So either you could argue if we lose this game we're in big trouble, or potentially we've got a chance to keep the momentum going. If you're looking forward to finding out how we do, please do chuck a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe down below for daily FM22 content from 2 long-term stories. We're still on double uploads throughout this week. Hemel Hempstead 11:30 each day, the head coach at 3:30 each day too. And then next week we'll be continuing with daily content at 3:30, as well as a few specials from FM Mobile and later in the month Cricket 22 as well. If you have missed any of the action from either story so far, or the Data Hub special we did yesterday morning, you can find those up in the eye above. But we've got a lot of transfers to get through, a lot of new players to meet. So let's head straight onto the transfer centre and see what's been happening this summer. And we start with the players that were released from the club. So most of these not really a surprise. In fact, all 5 of those near the bottom, despite a few getting sub appearances last year, were players that were on big money when we joined, but didn't unfortunately have the quality to match. So Ajayi, Morgan Griffiths, Castiglione, Jack Williams and Reggie Young all leave the club. We mentioned in the last episode that Elliot Hodgkins-Young has now signed a permanent coaching contract. That just takes 150 quid off the wage bill too. But the big one at the end of June is that Stephen Gleeson also left. He would not sign for less than 475 quid a week. In fact, he's now gone back to Ireland. He's playing for Longford, and there he's accepted a wage I would have kept him for. But you can see he's physically really declining, and there was no doubt in the end that we had to let him go. So Stephen Gleeson, the other big one that leaves from last season. Of course, Joe Redmond we knew was leaving already. He'd pre-agreed a deal with Sligo Rovers. But apart from that, if we go and have a look at the transfers as well, we didn't lose anyone early in the window. You can see we signed a few though. And towards the end of it, the only player that's left is Redmond. So we have not lost any other first team players, which means although we've got a lot of change in the squad, the continuity from the first 11 should be pretty strong this year. And bar that second centre-half role, I think it's probably going to stay the same for the first game. So let's go back to the end of last year and have a look at the first of 9 players who have joined the club. We mentioned we only had 12 signed on for this year, so we've basically just filled a backup team. We've managed to extend a couple of loans too, which does take the signings up to 12. But I think they've all been very much worth it. So the first one, Ellis Watts, has stayed for the year. He's basically the dream to have as a player on the bench, because where you've only got 5 subs in non-league football, he can play both centre midfield roles and both winger roles. He covers 4 positions at once. He had to be re-signed. We're contributing a wage this year, which is a shame, but I completely understand it, and he's well worth it for me. We've also renewed the deal of Samuel Ogunteo. The reason is we missed out on about 7 targets from our initial trial list that we really wanted. Some of them went to the league below us because they were getting offered more money. Some went to professional clubs to be backups instead of first team or rotation players here. And one of those was a great left winger, Dan Sparks, who is a similar set piece taker, similarly good and tall at the back post like Dobson is. So Ogunteo is the man who has to do. He will be our number 2 on the left wing. He's pretty good to be fair. He's better than Dobson in terms of rating, but he's not as tall, he's not as strong in the air. So he is still going to be the backup for now. I want to give all of our team from last season a chance. Ogunteo though, another player who fills 2 positions on the bench. We've got to have versatility as well. And then the third one, because I've missed out on our backup striker, who I'd still like to get in by the way, it's still available as a free agent. But it means we've extended the loan of Demarlio Brown Sterling. He is a solid backup up front. Again, can cover on the right wing, just gives us depth. So these loan players are basically dreams for the bench. I don't think Sterling actually scored a league goal for us, did he? No. He scored a crucial goal against Barnet in the FA Trophy. So he's always got a little bit of a soft spot in our heart. In terms of the four that came in permanently at the start of the window, a couple of them, Brooke and Carson, we had on trial when we were back for the FA Trophy final. So Matthew Carson is brilliant. A backup left back, probably one of the few I would expect to break into the first team later in the year. He's a Northern Ireland under-21 international, really improving after being released from Southampton. And I've got to say, looking at him, he's as good as Fraser Shaw already. And of the ones in the first team that are maybe slightly off the top quality players, Fraser Shaw's 27, so Matthew Carson is going to get a right chance, I think. We're going to give him a few months of training, the odd game here and there and some cup games. But I think he's our man for the future. A brilliant signing and one that can maybe stick with us through a league or two. Of course, he'd have to be dedicated for a few years for that to happen though. So great first signing. Joe Osler was a little bit of a off-the-cuff signing. Not the sort of one that I was looking for in the summer, an experienced player who's going to sit as an emergency backup. But with that point, we'd already lost out on two centre-half targets who'd rejected us for other clubs. And I was looking at it thinking, Drea's rejected coming back on loan. We've lost out on these two who I wanted. We might start the season with only one centre-half at the club. So Osler just meant we definitely had a second player. He's a solid enough one, by the way. 2.5-star ability, played a full season for Havant and Waterlooville last year in the top half of the National League South. And at the moment, he's there with no contribution to wages unless he's on the bench or plays. And he's not going to do that very often. So at 32 years of age, we'll keep him about for a little while. And if he doesn't really get any football, then we'll just let him go. The third one, another important one after we'd lost out on a couple of targets. Jacob Marsden comes in to be our backup keeper. Again, on non-contract terms. So of the three choices we had from our backup options, he had to be the one we went for. Why would we pay a backup keeper if we can have someone who's barely going to kick a ball this season? Might get an appearance fee of 200 quid a couple of times in the FA Trophy. But for now, what a player as a backup keeper. We know David Gregory is firmly our first choice. And Jacob Marsden gives us a solid backup in case of emergency. And then the fourth one who came in on a permanent at the end of last season is Harry Brooke. Released by Norwich, he was in that original lot we'd scouted. We had him on trial at the end of May. He's a box-to-box midfielder, only 350 quid a week. We've kept right under that wage budget structure that we'd set in place. We're actually about £2,500 a week under the wage bill. And given that we were losing money last year, to come up a league and to keep the wages down, I think it's a great achievement. And I do know as well, if we stay up this year and do well, I know that a lot of the first teamers are going to want enhanced contracts for the next season. So we did need to leave a bit in the tank too. But fairly determined, great mentally, really good physically as well. He's a good passer of the ball, so as well as being a box-to-box, I'm sure he'd have no problem being a playmaker. He's 2.5-star there. Another solid player for the substitutes bench. I'm very happy with him. Let's move on to the ones that were done slightly later after the season turned. You can see the great news is that all of our work was done by the 11th of July. We've now got a squad we're happy with that have played a lot of pre-season together. And the only thing we're going to add now is odd bits of stardust if we get a super player that we can bring in. There's one of those that might be happening soon. So the first thing we did here where the season switched is we got to a position where we'd signed most of our top targets that were able to come and join us. That from the sort of first 2 months of scouting of the youngsters coming out of Premier League, EFL clubs, etc. And some of the best from the league below as well. After all the ones had rejected us, we looked at what positions we still needed backup. We looked at all of the players in our shortlist and from our scouted reports that were willing to join us on loan. And we picked out the best one in each position where we didn't have a wage contribution. So we could have got slightly better backup players than the three we've got in here. But equally, I'm looking later in the season and thinking, if we replace you, it's not costing us any extra money to have you in the squad still. So Jamie Egan is the first one, another centre-half who does a job. 2.5-star ability. He's all right. He's coming on loan from Bristol Rovers. No contribution at all. Maybe not the best physically, but all of his core attributes are fine. And if we need a centre-half for a couple of games, I fully trust him to do a job. Probably just jumps the queue ahead of Osler because we don't have to pay an appearance fee. But really good player. I'm happy with him. Joshua Simcox, maybe not quite as good. He's on loan from Walsall as a holding midfielder. If Gleeson had stayed, we wouldn't have needed him. But 2.5-star ability, does a job as a defensive mid. I think on the support duty, he's only 2-star. He's not the best marking, but he's okay positionally, he's solid in the tackle, and he's determined. If we have one game where, say, Ochieng's banned or on international duty, as we've seen, and we need Simcox to come in, I think he'll be all right. But he might not even be back up in the holding midfield role. We'll talk about why with one of the names further down the list. The third one who falls into our free loan list is Brian Ifanyi. He's on loan from Colchester, a right winger who can also play off the left. Not as good as Marsh Brown, but basically the same attribute profile. Probably likes to dribble more, not as much of a crosser of the ball, which doesn't really suit us. But he's decent in a jump at the back post for headers, and he's quite good physically. So if we need to have someone come in for a game or two, come off the bench and make an impact, he'll do all right. But with all of that done, we got into July with one remaining problem. We still hadn't replaced Joe Redmond as centre-half. We had two decent players come in, Osler and Egan. We never wanted them to be starters. But now, not only did we get one player who can replace him, we've got two. The first one is a player who I think has turned up in nearly every single one of my saves over the last few years. I'm sure we had him at Torquay. I'm sure we had him at Dorking. We definitely had him at Bangor City at some point. Riley Harbottle is always a non-league staple hold. He comes in for just 240 quid a week, 21 years of age, released by Nottingham Forest having never played a senior game, but 3.5-star ability, really solid attributes, 6'1", decent in the air. He's a very good first choice, and the fact that the one we've signed just after him is almost as good is a really good sign for this season. But we asked to replace Redmond with a good player, and we've very much done that. He's training well, he will improve. A brilliant signing. The second one is maybe even better. Jack Senga, 3 years his junior, released from Reading at 18 years of age, a Belgian under-21 international. Now, he's not quite as big in the jump, and he's maybe still got an inch or two to grow at 18. But I've looked at it and thought he's brilliant in the tackle, he's a decent passer of the ball, he's got a good personality, he's determined, he's got good stamina, good natural fitness, and he can also play in a holding role accomplished. So as well as being our first backup at centre-half, could he also be our international break cover for Ochieng? Now that depends on whether he's still called up to the Belgian under-21 squad. I'm hoping the fact that he won't start the other games means he might not be. But Jack Senga is a very good signing. And I think long-term, probably a starting centre-half for this club. If we can keep him happy and keep him improving, Jack Senga's a man for the future. So signings-wise, we've not really done much for the first team. There's a couple like Brook, maybe like Senga, and obviously the left-back Carson that might break in as the year goes on. But bar Harbottle, who is in essentially to replace Redmond, I think the other 10 will be the same 10 that started the FA Trophy final. So in terms of what I plan to achieve in this window, I think we've done it. We've got a season where we're a semi-pro team in a largely professional league. We've got some massive sides that we've got to compete against. And I just want to stay up. And I feel these lads, with the momentum, with the quality they showed towards the end of last year, can maybe deliver that for us. Let's get ahead to the transfer centre because there's one more bit of stardust that might be coming in. Ollie Turner is a player who rejected a trial with us in the summer. He had injuries when he was still at Spurs. But look at him. What a playmaker. Of course, Gleeson left the club. Carruthers will be bumped to the first team for now. But an Italian under-21 international who's a brilliant passer, fantastic technically in fact. Just got to work on him physically. And the one risk we've got, we mentioned that we had no injuries last year virtually. We made sure when we targeted players that they weren't injury prone. Well, this guy is a little bit. It's my only slight negative factor against signing him. It's probably not enough to put me off because if he has half a good year, we can probably sell him for 50, 100 grand with a sell-on fee. However, it is the first time we've got a player coming in who we know might have injuries regularly. Having said that, we waited till his wage demands have dropped to only 275 quid a week. So if he signs the contract, if he doesn't choose to go to massive clubs like Peterborough and Hearts instead, we might have a player on our hands. But I'm not getting excited yet. We've only just put the offer in. He's been on trial a few weeks, but there are big clubs sniffing around. And if either of those two come in for him, he ain't going to come to us, is he? Let's be honest. Although if he goes to Posh, it's fairly local. We might still get him on loan. Who knows? But the first game of the season is against the mighty Braintree, who came up against Ebbsfleet in the playoff final. The only side on paper from that league we'd probably expect to beat now. However, if we have a look at the pre-season predictions from the league, in terms of the media, we are predicted to finish 18th. Top of the 4 promoted sides, Guiseley and Darlington came up from the north, Braintree, of course, we know came up from the south, and they're the favourites for relegation, so there's big trouble if we don't win today. There's some massive new managers in. Darryl Clark comes to relegated Carlisle. Mark Cooper has moved from Barrow to Chesterfield. Ian Evatt from Bolton to Stockport. Hartlepool have come down too. They're not tipped to do very well. Not sure of the reasoning for that. And we've still got big hitters like Wrexham, who have stayed down but kept their star players. They've signed players from League One who are playing regular football. John Nolan from Ipswich. Harry Pell from Accrington Stanley. Stockport have signed big under Ian Evatt. And of course, Carlisle, Notts County, big threats at the top. Relegation survival is definitely the aim. Can we do it? Well, a win on the first day would help. We're facing the ultimate relegation favourites in Braintree, a side we beat domestically last season. So let's go and pick the 11 for our big National League debut and cross our fingers we can get a positive result. Right, line-up picked, and of course the games come thick and fast in the National League, so we are going to have to rotate a bit at the start. Bar Riley Harbottle, it's the same team that started the final. Why not? They've got momentum, they've got everything. Riley Harbottle continues a trend actually that Joe Redmond had. Right-footed centre-half, prefers to be on the left of a two-man pairing, so hopefully like Redmond it doesn't harm him. So the 11 for today is actually very familiar. The main reason for that is it keeps our tactical familiarity there. We've changed virtually nothing. It also, if we go back to the dynamics, keeps that team cohesion good, which I think is so important. We're going to have to do a little bit of a work on the social groups, which we mentioned in our season review. But if you look at our Data Hub special yesterday, you'll know exactly why I've opted for the team I have, rather than the 2 or 3 that possibly could have broken. It means that our starting keeper today is of course David Gregory. Simpson and Shaw are the fullbacks with Kapekwa and Harbottle at centre-half. Ochieng, Mantum and Samir Carruthers in as the midfield 3. And then Dobson and Marsh-Brown on the wings, Sedende up front. Can he step up to National League level? We're probably going to need him to. Oguntoyo, Watts, Brown, Sterling all stay on the bench as they were last year. So the only other changes to last season's squad is Brook and Senga making appearances on the bench. Let's go and get into the first game. Probably a must-win one against Braintree. See if we can get the result against the side that came up in the playoffs and a side we got the better of last year. If we're going to try and survive in this league, these sorts of games are going to be crucial. And here we go. These are the lineups. It's interesting to note as well, we've sold about 100 more season tickets. We've got about 300 more in attendance than the end of last season. 1,330 I think it was expected. We're going to tell the lads we're favourites, which we're not going to have much this year, so we'll make the most of that. We've got Sedende and Harbottle motivated. I just want to see very quickly who Braintree have signed, because we've got to close down this guy. But how many more have they brought in? Because if they've had a big window, which they have, we're going to find this a bit harder. There were 2 more coming in the end of last season as well. Dean Inman, a key man at centre-half. This isn't going to be easy by any means, but I'd love to get a result on the opening day. But in front of a big crowd at Vauxhall Road, let's go and see if we can do it. Up against a back 3, and we haven't started well, but we are back with a James Dobson free kick. That one goes just over the bar, but it looked a little bit nervy. They're playing a back 3, which has caused us problems in the past. I'll be looking for a bit more soon though. We've stuck with balance this year. I might have to go positive for this game. As Dobson crosses to Sedende. It's over the bar. We're winning set pieces. I'm going to go a bit more positive because they've left loads of men behind the ball. And this is the type of game where it is like a National League South match. We've got to have a go. No shots on target with half an hour gone though. And it's our rivals, our visitors, that are on the front foot. As Clements gets the ball to Akinwande. Back to Balogun. Keeping it nicely, but forced all the way back to the keeper. And Moore will take it from the back. Goes long downfield. Up towards Harbottle, who's made a mistake on his debut. It's a great save from David Gregory, though. Spares the blushes of the new centre-half. And David Gregory, we can take him to the Premier League. He's going to be a hero the whole time. We're not going to do anything team talk-wise because we're nearly at the half-time whistle. But we've been outplayed by the side expected to finish bottom. That can't be a good sign for the season. Let's go and talk to the lads. We've got to demand more than that. We're not happy with the performance. We need you to react. We need a big 10 minutes at the start of the second half. Now go and deliver it for us. Go and show us what you're made of. And at least create a couple of big chances. I think we're going to find out in the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks which players aren't ready for the step up perhaps. As Braintree have got another corner into the front post. Much better from Harbottle that time. But it's all Braintree at the moment. Clements right side of the box. Chance to cross in. There's been in support. We're very deep. I don't like that. Gregory and Kopekwa almost mix up, but David Gregory comes and claims safely. Big kick downfield towards Sedende. Loses out in the air to Inman. Balogun picks it up on the right. They just look so comfortable. They chip it forward there. Krasnicki breaks the lines. We're in big trouble. Murray's in again. Harbottle beaten. And it's 1-0 to Braintree. Just past the hour mark. But the flag goes up. We've been saved. I'm dropping back to balanced because they're right on top. We're going to go and make a few changes. Samir Carruthers doesn't look great. So Harry Brook will make a debut. They're better that way round. So Mantum will now be the playmaker. Dobson on the left struggling physically. Oganteo on for him. And I'm going to leave the last one 10 more minutes because I don't want to end up with 10 men if we get an injury. A quarter of the game to go. It's another goal kick for Braintree. We're really struggling to compete with the back three, the front two, maybe the pressure as well. The continuity, the momentum of being, 30 odd games unbeaten. The momentum of finishing the season in style and having 10 of the same 11. It's just not there. Again, Kopekwa having to save us last ditch. The defence have been brilliant, but they shouldn't have to be in a game like this. It's a real worry to start the season. Everyone's match fit. It's not like we've had a poor pre-season or anything like that. We're going to encourage the lads. We're going to make the final change. Who's it going to be? Marsh Brown or Sedende or the tired Fraser Shaw? We've got an option at left back, but I don't know if it's the right move to change the back four when we're playing so badly. I think what I'm going to do is replace Marsh Brown because he looks unhappy. I'm going to bring on D'Amalio, Brown, Sterling. The only goal he scored for us was against National League opposition. Well, let's see if he can match it today. We're getting a few more shots in now. We're finishing the stronger and we've got that fitness as we're on the right with a throw. Oshieng back to Brook. Back to Fraser Shaw on the edge of the box. What's he doing there? To Mantum. Into Brown, Sterling. Oh, the flag goes up. He looked on to me. I really thought he was on, but the flag goes up. It's an offside goal for each team. I've got to say, though, this is starting to look like one of those games from last year. Clinging on and then maybe a moment that suggests champions. Not at this level, of course, but survival here at the very least. As Mantum chips up, Sedende's in. Keeper's out. Sedende scores. The flag's up again. Oh, heartbreaking the 90th minute. What a finish from Hemel Hempstead Town, though. It's only going to be a point, but at least it's not a defeat to start the National League season. At least we keep that long unbeaten run going. And albeit the first half, maybe it was the nerves, maybe it was the tension of stepping up, a big crowd, not knowing what to expect. But I've got to say, we finished the game really strong, and I'm still confident we'll stay up. Maybe based on Carruthers' performance, that signing of Turner is going to be crucial. Maybe we are going to have to bed in 2 or 3 over the next month or two. You can see most of the big boys started really well. Notts County, Carlisle, Wrexham, all winning games. Hartlepool, who came down as well. Stockport, the second favourites with the bookmakers. But although it's not the dream start, of course not the type of game we wanted to show, a dull 0-0 draw, we've got to say, we're still unbeaten. And that's an important thing too. Let's have a look at the schedule for when we're going to be back. Of course, the defence had to do most of the work there. We've got a pretty horrid start in truth. We face Yeovil and Altrincham the next 2, but then Wrexham, Southend and Stockport and Barnet. 4 tough games in a row. A more friendly September. So maybe what we'll do is we'll show the Barnet game because it's the end of the Football League transfer window, just in case anyone tries to sniff around our players. And then it works nicely to come back around the end of October where we've got big games like FA Cup qualifying, Carlisle and Notts County too. If you did enjoy the episode though, a big transfer special and a dull 0-0 draw against Braintree, please do put a thumbs up on it. Let me know in the comments what you think of the summer window work. Have I made the right decision to try and stick with the same 11, to try and give them an opportunity to improve at this level? Or am I going to end up regretting not strengthening the team where the chances came? If you want to stay up to date and find out how we get on this year, please do subscribe down below and turn that notification bell on. We're still on a beta schedule, so 11:30 every day for Hemel Hempstead, 3:30 every day for the head coach. And there's plenty of live streams over on Twitch. You can find the link to that and all the other playlists up in the eye above. Please do give the Data Hub special a go from yesterday as well. That video's up there too. But a massive thank you for watching. Your continued support as always. It is greatly appreciated. We're into season 2. And I think we've seen already, this season's going to be a lot tougher.